Welcome to AWS Tutorials. My name is Kastro Kiran. In the last video, we have seen how to work with the S3 security concept. In this video, we are going to talk about one more important feature that is available in the S3 service, which is known as lifecycle management, or you can also call it as S3 lifecycle management. Let us understand what is meant by lifecycle management and how exactly this lifecycle management will help us in order to reduce the cost of storing the objects inside an S3 bucket. But before talking about lifecycle management, let us have a quick overview on what are the different storage classes that we have seen in the last videos. We know that there are 7 different types of storage classes that are available in the S3 service. By default, whenever we store an object or whenever we upload an object into the S3 bucket, all those objects will be stored in the standard storage class. Now, apart from standard storage class, we also have the other different types of storage classes as well. Now, here comes my requirement where I want to save the charges or I want to save the billing to my objects that are stored in the S3 bucket, especially with respect to different storage classes. So let us understand the lifecycle management with a scenario here. The scenario is, let's say you have some files. Now you want to access these files more frequently. Whenever you want to access these files more frequently, what will you do? Assume that you are working in an office and you have some files. Whenever you want to access the files more frequently, you are going to keep those files on the bench that you are working or on the cubicle that you are working, because you want these files to be accessed every now and then. Let's say these are the most important files which are helpful in order to work with the project. Okay, our project guidelines are available, our project details are available. So you need to refer these project details every now and then during the start of project or during the progress of the project. Now, in this case, since you want to access these files more frequently, you are going to keep the files on your table itself. Now, let's say you have some other files where you don't want to access them more frequently. In that case, what will you do? Instead of keeping those files on the desk or in the cubicle, you are going to keep those files in a box files where you are going to store. Now, why you are going to store the files in a box file? Because you are not going to access these files more frequently. So that's why I am going to keep all the files in one particular set of file and then I'm going to store it. Now, let's say you have another set of files where you don't want to access them in a frequent way. Let's say you are going to access them whenever there is a requirement. In that case, what will you do? Are you going to keep the files on your desk? No. So where you are going to keep? You are going to keep those files in the shelves. Wherever shelves are available, you are going to store those files in the shelves. And whenever there is a requirement, what will you do? You will go to that particular shelf and you will take the file, whatever that you need, and then you will refer the documents, whatever that are required for you. Now, similarly, let us say you have some other files where you don't want to access them at a larger rate, or let's say you want them to be accessed maybe once in a month, or once in 2 months, or once in 3 months. Where you are going to keep all these files? You are going to keep all these files in a closed racks or in drawers. So that's how you are going to manage the files based upon your requirement. If you want to access the files more frequently, then you are going to keep the files on your desk itself. If you don't want to access the files more frequently, according to the situation or according to the requirement of the access to the files, you are going to store them at different locations. Let's say you have some files which are not at all helpful for you. Now, what will you do? You are going to delete all those files, or you are going to keep all those files in the dustbin. So this is a scenario here. Now, let us understand how this scenario helps in respect to the S3 lifecycle management concept. So here in S3 lifecycle management, what we are going to do is we are going to manage the objects in different storage classes. Suppose, let's say here you have the main files. So main files are there. Now you want to access them more frequently. Whenever you want to access them more frequently, what you are doing, you are keeping those files on the desk itself. Wherever you are going to sit, in that place only you are going to keep the files. Why? Because you want to access these files more frequently. Let's say once in every day you want to access them, or maybe multiple times in the same day you want to access them. So that's how you are going to store the files. Now, similarly, in the S3 bucket also, okay, in the S3 bucket also, you can manage the storage capacity of your objects. So how you are going to manage the storage capacity? By using a concept called life cycle management. But how this life cycle management really helps in order to store the files? Let's say we have different storage classes. Now, in all these storage classes, let's say I want to store the files according to my requirement in different storage classes. Let us understand that scenario here. Let's say you have created a bucket, and in this bucket, you are going to upload some object. Now, we know that by default, whenever you upload an object or whenever you upload multiple objects into an S3 bucket, by default, which storage class will be there? By default, standard will be the storage class. Okay, by default, standard will be the storage class where all our objects that are uploaded into the S3 bucket will be stored. Now, let's say after 15 days of object creation, okay, after 15 days of object creation, I want all these files to automatically move to another storage class, which is known as standard IA. What is IA? Infrequent access. Am I able to access these files frequently? No. So only once in 15 days or once in 10 days or once in a week, I want to access these files. So in that case, what you want to do after 15 days, I'm just giving the 15 days as number, but in real time, the number might change or the number of days might change. So here, what is the scenario? After 15 days of object creation, whatever the objects that are available in the standard storage class, automatically they have to move to standard infrequent access. That's my requirement. Now, again, after 13 days of object creation, whatever the objects that are available in the standard IA storage class, I want them to be automatically moved to another storage class, which is known as one zone IA. Okay, which is known as one zone IA. Now, similarly, after 45 days of object creation, whatever the objects that are available in one zone IA, I want them to be automatically moved to another storage class, which is known as a glacier storage class. Now, one more scenario is after 60 days of object creation, whatever the objects that are available in glacier storage class, I want them to be moved to glacier deep archival storage class. And after 90 days of storage class or 75 days of storing the objects in glacier storage class or glacier deep archival storage class, I want the objects to be automatically deleted. We can configure the storage classes of a particular object based upon the requirement by using lifecycle management. Now, what is the advantage of using lifecycle management aspect in the S3 bucket? You can actually save the charges that are coming onto the storage classes. Let's say when you are storing an object in the standard storage class, you are getting 30 rupees per day. Now, but when you are storing the objects in standard IA, maybe you are going to get maybe 10 rupees or 15 rupees per day. So you are going to optimize the storage classes. At the same time, you are going to optimize the price that you are going to get in order to store the objects in the different storage classes. So this is how you can work with the lifecycle management. But in order to configure in this way, we have two important rules or two important policies, which are called as life cycle management rules or life cycle management policies. So let us see what are those life cycle management rules or policies that are available. Let's say this life cycle management concept is majorly applicable to the buckets, not to the objects. By default, whatever the objects that are available in that bucket, for all those objects, life cycle management rule will be applied. Okay, you don't need to explicitly apply for each object, you don't need to apply the life cycle management rule. So by default, whenever you apply the life cycle management rule to a bucket, automatically whatever objects that are there in that bucket, life cycle management rule will be applied. But whereas storage classes will be applied to objects, individual objects, you can change the storage classes. We have seen this one in the previous demos, which is on storage class demo as well. If you want, you can refer the video that is available in the playlist which is on how to change the storage classes of an object, right? So now let us see what are the life cycle management rules that are available for us. There are two rules that are available. Let's understand that. So the first rule is known as the transition policy. The first rule is known as transition policy. Now, what is meant by transition? Transition in general means change. Okay, from one storage class to another storage class, it has to be changed. That's called as a transition. Now, we know there are different storage classes that are available. Now, what is meant by transition policy? I want the object, okay, I want the object to move from one storage class to another storage class automatically based upon the number of days that I am going to give. Okay, this we will clearly see when we are working in the AWS console. But for time being, let us understand what is meant by transition. Transition is nothing but change of storage classes automatically based upon the rule that we have given. That's called as transition policy. So this transition policy is applied or it is used to automatically transit the objects between different storage classes. So you want to shift the object from one storage class to another storage class. So how will you shift? By using transition policy. And the second policy is known as the deletion policy. Okay, the second policy is known as a deletion policy. Now, what is meant by deletion policy? Let's say after 2 months of storing the object in the S3 bucket, I want the objects to be automatically deleted. Okay, I want the objects to be automatically deleted. So this deletion policy is used to automatically delete the objects after a specific period. That period can be anything. You can give according to the project requirement or according to your own requirement. So this is called as a transition policy and deletion policy. So these are the two types of policies that are available in the S3 lifecycle management concept. So here, one important thing that we need to remember with respect to transition policy is transition will always happen. Okay, transition will always happen from top to bottom only. That means you can change the storage classes from standard to standard IA. You can change the storage class from standard IA to one zone IA. You can change the storage class from one zone IA to S3 Glacier. But you cannot change the storage class from S3 Glacier to one zone IA. You cannot change the storage class from one zone IA to S3 standard. You cannot come in reverse order. You can only go from top order to the bottom order. This we will clearly see when we are doing the practical demo. So these are the two lifecycle management rules, or you can also call it as actions in order to work with the lifecycle management concept. So this is the concept of lifecycle management. One is a transition policy and the second one is a deletion policy, or we can also call it as the expiration policy as well. Deletion policy is also called as expiration policy. Now, let us see what are the tasks that we are going to do with respect to the lifecycle management concept. So here what we will do is, first let us create one bucket and then let us upload some objects into the bucket, or let us just create the bucket and then what we will do is let us configure the lifecycle rules, both the transition policy as well as the expiration policy we are going to create. And once we configure the lifecycle rules, what we will do is we are going to upload the objects into the S3 bucket and then we are going to observe the changes that are going to happen for that specific bucket. So let us go to the AWS console and let us work with all of these tasks that are available here. So here I am there in the AWS console, especially the S3 service. Let us create a bucket here. You can see there is an option called create bucket. Just click on create bucket. And here I'm just selecting the region as Mumbai region. If you want, you can select any other regions. And the bucket name I'm going to give as LCM, Lifecycle Management. And I'll give my name and something like March 2024 or just 2024 I'll give. Okay, you can give any name to the bucket, but there is only one rule, that is the bucket name must be globally unique. We have been talking about this one since the day one of S3 classes. And the object ownership, I'm going to keep ACLs disabled and block all public access also, let it be turned off only. Remaining settings I'm not going to change. Let it be the default settings only. And then click on create bucket. Now, once you create the bucket, what we need to do is we need to configure the lifecycle management rules. Now, how to configure this lifecycle management rules? In order to configure the lifecycle management rules, just click on the bucket or open the bucket, whatever you have created. And once you open the bucket, you can see there are no objects that are available currently in the S3 bucket that we have created. Right. So now let us create the lifecycle management rule. So in order to create the lifecycle management rule, you can see this tab, which is known as management tab. So click on the management tab, and the very first option that you see is the lifecycle rules. So currently, do we have any lifecycle rules? No. So let us create a lifecycle rule. So just click on create lifecycle rule, and then here you can give the lifecycle rule name. Suppose, let's say, what is the rule that I'm going to give? Let's say I'll give the rule name as standard to one zone IA. Okay, I'm just giving the rule just to have an example here. I'm just giving this rule name. Okay, but we are going to work in depth about this one. Standard to one zone IA. Okay, this is the rule name that I am giving. And here you can see choose a rule scope. Now, how this rule has to be applied. Now, if you want to apply this particular rule to all the objects in the bucket, you can select this option. Okay, if you want to apply the lifecycle management rule to all the objects, whatever objects that you are going to upload into the S3 bucket, to all those objects, if you want the lifecycle rule to be applied, you can select this one. Otherwise, if you want the rule to be applied only to a specific objects or specific type of the objects, then you can use this option, which is known as limit the scope of this rule using one or more filters. What are those filters? You can see. You can filter objects by prefix or by using object tags or by using object size or whatever combination that you need. So that's called as you can enter the prefix of your object. Now, whenever an object is getting uploaded with that prefix, only for those objects, the lifecycle rule will apply. But usually in real-time scenarios, we are going to apply the objects or apply the rule to all the objects in the bucket. Again, this is according to the requirement only. There is no strict rule that you should apply the lifecycle rule for all the objects that are there in the bucket. But currently, I'm going to work with this one. That is, apply to all objects in the bucket. And then click on I acknowledge. And here you can see the lifecycle rule actions. Now, what kind of actions we can perform? We can create transition policy, and we can also create expiration policy. Now, here you can see review transition and expiration policy. Have we created any transition policy or expiration policy? No. So how to create this transition and expiration policy? So in order to create the transition and expiration policy, we need to configure these actions. Okay, we need to configure these actions. Let's see that. So the first option is move current versions of objects between storage classes. Okay, whatever the current versions of objects that are available, if you want to move them from one storage class to another storage class, you can select this option. And the second option is move non-current versions of the objects. Okay, what does it mean by non-current versions? It means whatever the objects that are available, you can see here. Choose transitions to move non-current versions of objects between storage classes. Based on what? Based on your use case scenario and performance access requirements. Okay, so like this, you can work with any of these options. And you can see expire current versions of object. Expire means delete automatically. Okay, expire means delete automatically. So first, let us work with this option, which is move current versions of objects between storage classes. That is what we need. I want the objects to be moved automatically from one storage class to another storage class. So that's why I'm selecting this option, the first option. And if you scroll down here, you can see transition current versions of objects between storage classes. So by default, which storage class will be available for the object? Standard storage class is available. From standard storage class, to which storage class I want to transit the object. You can select any storage class, whatever that is available here. Okay, you can select any storage class that is available. Suppose let's say, after storing the objects in the standard storage class, I want the objects to be moved automatically to standard IA. Okay, I want the objects to be moved automatically to standard IA. So select this option. Now, how many days after creating the object you want the objects to come to standard IA. That's what it means. So days after object creation. How many days after object creation you want the object to come into the standard IA storage class? Let's say I'll give it as 15 days, or you can give any number of days that you want. Okay, after 15 days of object creation, automatically the object will be moved to standard IA storage class. Okay, automatically the object will be moved to standard IA storage class. Now, after moving to standard IA storage class, I want to move the object to another storage class. How to do that? You can see an option here, add transition. So click on add transition, and here you click on drop down, and here you can see you can select the storage class whatever that you need. But can you change the storage class? Let's say I want to go to standard storage class. Is this option enabled here? You can see standard IA option is disabled. Why? Because the transition policy will always happen from top to bottom. That is from standard to you can come down, but you cannot go back. That's the rule that is applied. Now, let's say from standard IA to I want the object to be transitioned to intelligent tiling. After how many days of object creation? Let's say after 30 days of object creation, automatically the object should move to intelligent tiling. Okay, the object should move to intelligent tiling. Can we give one more policy like that? Yes. So click on add transition. Now, after intelligent tiling, after 30 days of object creation, I am going to store the objects in the intelligent tiling storage class. Now, after that, I want to move the storage class to one zone IA. Or let's say I want to move the storage class to Glacier Instant Retrieval. After how many days? Let's say I will give it as 45 days. But now here, if I add one more transition, you can see I cannot select any of the above storage classes. Am I able to select these options? No. You can only go from top to bottom. That means from standard IA to intelligent tiling, you can select. Intelligent tiling to one zone IA, you can select. Can you go from one zone IA to standard IA again? It's not possible. You can see here, these options are disabled. That is what it means, top to bottom. Okay, that is what it means, top to bottom. Suppose, let's say you don't want the transition for one storage class. Can you remove the transition? Yes. You can see an option here, remove. Just click on remove so that the object transition will be removed. Now you can see very detailed here, the review, transition and expiration actions. Now on day 0, okay, current versions of actions. On day 0, what will happen? You are going to upload the objects. Okay, you are going to upload the object. On day 15, what is going to happen? Objects will move to standard IA. On day 30, what will happen? Objects will move to intelligent tiling. On day 45, what will happen? Objects will move to Glacier Instant Retrieval. That is how the transition will happen. But are the objects getting deleted after 45 days? Let's say after 60 days, I want the objects to get deleted. So in that case, you can give the option as X permanently delete non-current versions of the objects. Okay, permanently delete non-current versions of object, or you can also give delete expired object, delete markers, or incomplete multi-part uploads. We have already talked about what is meant by delete marker tag. Okay, this concept we have seen in the S3 versioning concept. Okay, if you want, you can refer that video that is there in the playlist of AWS tutorials. Right. So that's how you can transit the object from one storage class to another storage class. Okay, but remember, don't try to select any other storage classes that are giving charges for you. Okay, if you give or if you select any of the storage classes like Glacier Deep Archival or something like that, you can see it is clearly telling that you will be charged for each object you transition to S3 Glacier Deep Archival or Flexible Archival. So make sure of this one when you are practicing. In order to avoid the billing, don't select the storage classes which gives billing to you. Okay, that's how I'm selecting a different storage class which is known as Glacier Instant Retrieval. And then click on create rule. Once you click on create rule, what will happen? The rule will get created. So currently you can see what is happening here. A minimum of 30 days is required. So if you want to move the objects from one storage class to another storage class, that is standard IA, minimum 30 days you should give. Okay, minimum 30 days you should give. So let us give the 30 days here. So let me give in the first case 30 days. In the second case, what I'll give is I'll give 60 days. In the third case, I'll give it as 90 days, or let's say 670 days. Okay, and then click on create rule. Once you click on create rule, what will happen? Whenever you upload the objects, okay, whenever you upload the objects into this S3 bucket, by default, where it will get uploaded? In the standard storage class. After 45 days or after 60 days, based upon the life cycle rule that we have given, you can see the life cycle rule. So click on this one, you can see more details about that. After 30 days, what will happen to the object? They will automatically move to the standard IA. After 60 days, what will happen? From standard IA to, it will automatically move to intelligent tiering. At 70 days, what will happen? From intelligent tiering to, the objects will automatically move to glacier instant retrieval. If you want to see this difference very clearly, when you are practicing, you give these many days and then you wait for those many days to transit the object from one storage class to another storage class. So that's how you can work with the lifecycle management rule. But once after you complete the work, make sure to delete the lifecycle management rule, whatever you have created, in order to avoid the billing. Okay, so how will you delete that? Just go inside the bucket. In the bucket, go to the management tab. In the management tab, go to lifecycle rule actions, and here you will be able to see the rule that you have created. Once you create the rule, okay, select the rule and then click on delete option. You can see delete option here, so that the rule will get deleted. Okay, so that the rule will get deleted, and then the life cycle management rule will not be applied. The transition policy or the expiration policy, whatever that you have given, those rules will not be applicable for the bucket once after you delete the rule, or once after you delete the life cycle rule, the rule will no longer apply to the objects. So that's how you can work with the life cycle management concept. I hope the concept of life cycle management is clear to you. We will meet in the next video with another concept that is available in the S3 service. Thank you.